Racing UK International is a must-have service for race fans across the globe. Watch live action from 34 of the UK's best racecourses and catch up on any races you've missed with a 7-day catch-up service.
It's American artist Too Good on the Day for quick defence.
Another course of distance success for an Indian giver.
From America to India, anywhere, anytime. Sign up to Racing UK International now for just $29.99 a month.
Hello, welcome to a new series of This Racing Life, and with the Coral Eclipse this weekend we have headed to Sandown Park. A little later on I'll be out on the track here at Sandown Park talking to clerk of the course Andrew Cooper, reminiscing about some of the great winners of the Eclipse since his tenure here started. Elsewhere, Tom O'Ryan has been to the official opening of the Injured Jockeys Fund's Jack Berry House. Bernard Condren has been on his travels talking to the newly elected Newmarket Mayor. But first, I headed to the East London offices of bookmaker Coral, whose remarkable 40-year sponsorship of the Eclipse has made their brand synonymous with the big race. Simon Clare joins me on the trading floor here at Coral HQ. Simon, you're about to celebrate 40 years in association with the Eclipse. Just tell us what that means to you and how excited you are about it.
Well, it's a race that obviously Coral's been associated for 4 decades. It's our flagship sponsorship. It's a race that I've been lucky enough to work very closely with and manage to some extent since 1997. So with every passing year and obviously celebrating 40 years this year, it becomes an even bigger and more exciting event.
And is it a race where you really want the best turning up, and because you sponsor it, you want the best horse to win? You put all that sort of price allegiance and the best result for the bookmaker out the window. You want the best horses turning up and winning this because you sponsor it.
We do. I mean, it's a very interesting time in the calendar, because its traditional slot is actually the time when the middle distance older horses take on the classic generation. But in reality, every year is different. Sometimes you have some top class 3-year-olds running, which hopefully will this year with Golden Horn, the Derby winner, expects to run. But other years you'll have great older horses turning up, the likes of Pilsudski, Falbrav, So You Think. So it's a very hard race to plan for, even from a pricing point of view. The traders, to support the race, will often price the race up, but more often than not, you've got a lot of top class horses in the mix, but what you're actually going to get on the day is sometimes you don't really know. But whatever happens, really, year in, year out, it's always delivered a great race, and on many occasions it's delivered great champions.
Is it quite unusual for a bookmaker to have such a long-standing sponsorship of a race like this?
It's actually unusual for any sponsor to have a long-standing relationship that long in any sport. I think we're the longest running group race sponsorship in the world when it comes to racing. In racing generally, the Hennessy, I think the Chase dates back to the 60s. The John Smith's Magnet Cup is a long horse racing sponsorship, but we're probably the 3rd longest in Britain. And in any sport, I think, just to survive 4 decades. I mean, generally sponsorships, they run out fairly quickly. If they're long, they still eventually come to a natural end, so to speak. And yet this one, I'm very proud to say, has survived many changes of ownership of Coral. Many new marketing directors coming in, questioning whether we should spend money in another way. Budget cuts, tough times. I mean, it's some effort to keep such a huge investment in one particular sponsorship, but as I say, my predecessors before me have managed to do it, and to some extent I feel a responsibility to keep maintaining the race and building it onto bigger and better things, as do Sandown, and that's why Coral and Sandown have formed such a great partnership over the years.
And just before your association started, you had winners like Mill Reef, of course, and soon afterwards you had some great champions. You had Sadler's Wells go and win the race, Dancing Brave as well. What does it mean? Do you have memories of those sorts of races?
They were really before my time. I remember, Nashwan in '92 was obviously a memorable winner doing the Guineas Derby double. Kyonga, a great Irish mare, and then my first year actually, when I joined Coral, Pilsudski fought out a wonderful performance against Benny the Dip and Bosra Sham in a real sort of contentious race where Kieran Fallon got into a pocket in just a 5-runner race on Bosra Sham. The following year, a brilliant Godolphin Grey, Daylami won. We then had the likes of Falbrav, So You Think, See the Stars, some great champions over the years. And as I say, when you look back through that Roll of Honour, in my memory and beyond and before it, it really just stands up as a top class race in the calendar.
Tell us what your favourite memory of the Coral Eclipse is.
I think my favourite memory was in 2000 when Giant's Causeway won the Coral Eclipse, and he was a horse who, despite the fact that he won his 3 races as a 2-year-old, he won his comeback in a Group 3. He then was second when favourite in both the English Guineas and the Irish Guineas, won the St James's Palace, and yet came there as an 8-to-1 chance, the biggest price he ever went off in his 13-race career, 8-to-1 in that Coral Eclipse. And the reason why, he was facing Saki, a Derby second, fantastic light, who went on to win 6 Group 1s. He faced off Kalanisi, who finished second that day, who went on to win the Champion Stakes and the Breeders' Cup Turf. So it was a high-class field assembled, and that day, as almost an outsider, despite that profile, George Duffield, well into his 50s, rode a magnificent race. He did pick up a whip ban, it must be said, but rode a fantastic finish to win the Coral Eclipse. And that horse never started short of price, so a bigger price again. He went on to win 3 Group 1s, the Sussex, the Judmonte, the Irish Champion, second in the QE2 Stakes, and then a brilliant second in the Breeders' Cup Classic to Tisnow, when I think he started about 7.5-to-1, which is the closest he ever got to that magic 8-to-1. But that was a sensational race. It was 13 starts, 9 wins, 4 seconds, and he went on to become a brilliant sire as well. So for me, that 2000 Victor is my favourite.
Andrew and I have come out onto the track here at Sandown, where we're watering the picnic area. It's all right, don't worry. What sort of shape is the track in at the moment, Andrew?
Yeah, pretty good, Tom. Pretty good. It's not been an easy spring and early summer. I mean, I was saying the same thing at Epsom. It's just been so dry, really. You know, I mean, I'd say April, May, and June have all been well below average rainfall, certainly in the southeast. Ground at the moment, combination of doing some watering and a little bit of rain the early part of this week would be sort of far side of good ground. I mean, it's probably, you know, this far away from a race meeting of this calibre, it's in about the right place, I'd say. What we'll do for the Eclipse is we'll actually have fresh ground from the water jump, from about the mile. So all the way from the mile, all the way around the bend up to the winning post will be a strip of fresh ground for the Saturday. It obviously means they're travelling slightly less on the Saturday, but they'll be covering what is the exact distance of Sandown start. So the Fridays will be plus whatever yardage wherever we end up putting the bend is. No, I think what you find when you've got a fresh strip of ground to open up for a second day, it sort of holds on to its moisture a little bit more than ground that's opened up. In dry conditions, if you're racing on ground, it will dry quicker. You're opening up, you're exposing soil, and it will just dry that bit quicker than something you've got fresh for a second day.
Jack Berry's charitable work in racing is well known, and therefore it's fitting that his name has been given to the Injured Jockeys Fund's Northern establishment. Years of hard work are now complete, and Tom O'Ryan went to the official and royal unveiling.
Jack, a hugely proud day for you, and if we flick back, it's over 50 years since you were one of the jockeys who were going round with buckets at Wetherby Racecourse for Paddy Farrell, your great mate at Charlie Hall's, after he got badly injured in the 1964 Grand National. That's how the Injured Jockeys Fund started, Jack.
Well, it's not because, I mean, Paddy, you're right, he said he was my best pal. And he had a wife and 5 kids. They were from 7, 5, 3 and 5 months old. 4 kids, rather. And we thought he'd got injured in the Grand National. He was a paraplegic because he got injured from his chest down. And he needed a bit of assistance because, I mean, insurances those days, it wasn't very good. We paid £66 a year to get insured. And you got £10 running 8 a week when you got injured. But for the first 3 weeks, you didn't get paid at all. So, I mean, it wasn't easy. So we thought that it needed a few quid. And if we could raise enough money to buy him a bungalow, wheelchair friendly, that would all. And that's how the Injured Jockeys Fund got started. Because it was Paddy Farrell, and then on the back of that, Tim Brookshaw as well. It was the Brookshaw Farrell Fund for a long time. Yes, it was. Well, Tim got injured before Paddy at the entry meeting as well, and on a horse called Lucky Door in a hurdle race, and he needed some help after Paddy got his what he wanted, so they called it the Farrell Brookshaw Fund. And then other jump jockeys got injured, so they called it the National Hunt Jockeys Fund. Then flat jockeys also got injured, so they called it, as it is today, the Injured Jockeys Fund. And to come this far now, and Oaksey House being built 6 years ago, and now Jack Berry House with your name on it, Jack, how proud is that? Absolutely brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It was my vision, Oaksey House. Originally, it took me 3 years to get that past the trustees, because they thought, well, how can we be seen spending money that people donate on such a facility? But it's the best thing the Injured Jockeys Fund ever did. And this is even better, being in the north, because this is fantastic.
Brough, as chairman of the Injured Jockeys Fund, this must be a real realisation of a dream to see this Jackberry House opening today.
Yes, it's actually, without being too silly, but very moving, because you've gone from an idea to proposals to planning to then a building site, and now to be here and to do what we're here to do, which is to help injured jockeys and to stop jockeys getting injured in the first place by getting them fitter and better, and symbolised by a statue which will be unveiled, which I can exclusively reveal will actually have Jack in colour, i.e. the shirt will be in colour, and it'll certainly be red.
And a signature building at Lambourne in Oaksey House. We're 6 years on from that now. What does it mean to have a similar facility in the north, Brough?
It means everything, because it's very important. Oaksey House was a statement of intent, but it was also obviously in the south. And we're here for all jockeys, wherever they may be in the United Kingdom and indeed in Ireland. So we desperately needed, well, in Westminster we're talking about a northern powerhouse. We've got our northern powerhouse already now.
And a great turnout today. And I would imagine once today is here and gone, you can really move on and get this place humming then, I would imagine.
I think so, but I mean already, as you know, Tom, I mean it's been, you know, we've got so much interest from the local community, and I think Brian Ellison, I popped into Moulton yesterday, and Brian Ellison turned up at lunchtime with a sort of half the yard full of staff, I think, to use the gym and things like that. So it's already, you know, it's been well used in the area, and so the racing community are really embracing the facility, which is amazing.
AP, great to see you here today. What do you think of the place?
Yeah, it looks great. You can only be impressed with it. As I said earlier, I think it's a day that Jack Berry should be very proud of. The lads in the north here are very lucky that he's put a facility like this together through sheer determination and hard work. So I'm very lucky that I live 5 minutes from Oaksey House, which definitely helped prolong my career, that's for sure. Having the physios there and the facilities that we have there, so I'm sure it will only help the lads in the north here, that's for sure.
Isn't it amazing? It's extraordinary what one man can achieve if you really want to. There's one thing thinking about doing something, but to actually pull your finger out and hustle and harry, and God knows how many times he's phoned me up to buy a brick or ask for a bit of advice on doing something, but to actually achieve this, he must be incredibly proud. And his one overriding thought when he did this, he didn't want the northern equivalent of Oaksey House to be any way inferior to the one that we've got already, and this one is right up to spec. You know, everything is as good as you can do it, and probably a little bit better as well.
And all those days that you spent at the races and running after people and saying, do you want to buy an inscribed brig for £50 a time? And we see the end result now, because they're everywhere around here. That seems an awful long time ago.
Well, it doesn't, but it's a wonderful thing, you know. I mean, I didn't say at the time when I sent all those many letters round there that would regret not buying a brick, because I mean the name's on that brick there forever, isn't it? They could come back in 100 years' time and their relatives will say that's my great granddad's name on that brick. But there are, other than selling bricks, I mean many people have contributed to the success of this place. I mean, they did all sorts of things. They've done sponsored slims, they've done fashion shows, they've swum, one silly mare even swam a lake. I mean, they've done marvellous things to raise this money, because we have just about funded it through donations, which is marvellous, and I'm so grateful to them.
40 years of Coral sponsorship of the Eclipse have seen some superstars pulling up at about this point after the winning post, making their way back down the horse walk to the winner's enclosure. Earlier I was at Coral HQ and I asked some of the team about their favourite renewals.
My favourite Coral Eclipse memory, Tom, takes us right back to nearly the start of Coral sponsorship, and that's 1978 and a horse called Gonna Be. It's definitely not the best horse to win the Eclipse, but it really has a great story. He started as a 2-year-old, trained by Jeff Toft in Beverley, and started plying his trade around the northern track, and he finished his 2-year-old career as a decent horse, but not even in the free handicap, probably rated about 2 stone behind the best. So he then started his 3-year-old career, and he became the darling of the punters in the north of England and the scourge of the bookmakers. Yeah, he won the Cecil Frail, he won the Doonside Cup, and probably his best performance, I thought, he won the handicap at Redcar under a big weight. So he became a really tough, genuine horse as a 3-year-old. Then went into his 4-year-old career, and he won the Diomed Stakes. We won a Group 3. And again, he probably finished his 4-year-old campaign as a really strong, trusted horse, very popular, but never likely to go on and win Group 1s. And that all changed at the end of his 4-year-old days when he was moved from Jeff Toft to Henry Cecil, and Henry did an absolutely magnificent job with him. Won a number of group races and then lined up in the Coral Eclipse, wasn't even favourite on that day, and his victory was just typical of the horse. Joe Mercer riding him, stoked him up about 2 furlongs out, and really, rather than being a spectacular winner, he ground out a victory and got past long-time leader Radetzky in the final furlong.
My favourite Coral Eclipse memory was 1997 when Pilsudski won, but it wasn't so much the winner that I loved. It was Benedict was pretty much my favourite horse at the time, remains one of my favourite horses of all time. And Kieran Fallon was definitely my favourite jockey at the time, and again, there haven't been many jockeys since that I like more. And that race, neither of them covered themselves in glory, but I'll always remember the race. I went down there as a teenager with my dad, and I backed Benedict because I just loved the horse. He'd just come off a Derby win. He went off in front. I think he went quite a slow pace, and in behind there was all sorts going on, and he seemed to sort of wave the white flag about a furlong out as far as I can remember, and Pilsudski ranged up alongside. But whilst this was going on, Kieran Fallon had gone for a run on Bosra Sham up the rail. He'd been blocked off, I believe, by Benedict. He had to pull round horses. Pilsudski stayed on to win well. Benedict had no excuses and just wasn't good enough, and I think he proved to be not good enough in a couple of subsequent runs before being shipped off to China or India, wherever he stood at stud. But the main talking point after the race was Fallon's ride on Bosra Sham.
My favourite Coral Eclipse memory came in 2009 when a horse called See the Stars came along, although had you have asked me that question prior to that it would have been Dancing Brave, but in 2009 a horse, not just my favourite Coral Eclipse winner, but my favourite racehorse ever. We'd seen him win the Guineas. He wasn't unfancied that day at 8-1, but that set up the possibility of a Derby double that hadn't been achieved since Nashwan 20 years earlier. He then went to Epsom, and it seems scarcely believable now that he wasn't actually favourite that day at Epsom. That honour went to Fame and Glory, but of course in the race itself it was the 11-4 second favourite, See the Stars, who came out on top under Mick Kinnan, a real resurgent Mick Kinnan there towards the end of his career. And then that set up the fantastic potential of a horse, again, Nashwan was the last horse to do it, but completing the Guineas, Derby, Coral Eclipse treble that, as I say, we hadn't seen for 20 years. So by now it's getting exciting. He's won over a mile, he's won over a mile and a half. In recent years, the likes of Motivator, Authorised, they'd gone to Sandown as Derby winners and got beaten. So quite a lot of pressure on See the Stars at that point, but by then he's what he should be. He was an odds-on favourite. That's not to say he scared off the opposition, because he really didn't. Amongst the opposition at Sandown, we had Conduit, already won a Breeders' Cup by then. We had an Italian Derby winner, Cima de Triomphe, brought over now with Luca Cumani. And Ballydoyle, who tried so hard that year to get See the Stars beaten, but they relied on Rip Van Winkle. And in the event, it was Rip Van Winkle who gave him most to do. There was just a moment, about a furlong out, where he came up alongside See the Stars. We all thought, no, he's going to get beaten. But like all great champions, dug deep, went on, let's say 4-7 at that point, went on to score by a length. The whole place went mad. His owner, a young Hong Kong-based businessman, Christopher Choi, actually fainted after the race. And I can see how he did. It was a scorching hot day. Let's say it was down to the scorching hot day and the excitement of seeing his great horse, as I say, complete a wonderful treble.
Well, my favourite Coral Eclipse was 2011, a fantastic renewal, just the 5 runners, but it didn't lack in quality. So you think the big Southern Hemisphere reputation, only his second run in the UK, Workforce, the Derby, Arc winner, and Iya Snow Fairy taking on the opposite sex, the former Oaks winner. So plenty of quality in the race, and it made for a fantastic renewal. So you think, only his second run, as I say, but he had a point to prove. He was second in the Prince of Wales Stakes at Royal Ascot, so didn't quite deliver on his debut, but he got there in the end, as I say, in his run in the Coral Eclipse. Shamey Efferman was on board the favourite, just tracked Workforce for about 7 furlongs into the race, and then really pushed the button in the final straight, and boy did he get an answer from So You Think. He pushed his horse out, a massive horse in structure, and he went on, of course, to win 5 Group 1s in the UK. I thought that was a fantastic renewal, as I say. Just the 5 runners, maybe we'll get this year, but plenty of quality. And that was the day that really he came to light in the Northern Hemisphere, because he had nothing to prove in Australia, had nothing to prove in the Southern Hemisphere, but after getting beat at 4-11 in the Prince of Wales Stakes, he had a lot to do and he had a lot to deliver, and boy, did he get it right.
Now, there's been some changes at Flat Racing's headquarters. Bernard Condren has been in Newmarket talking to the newly elected mayor, trainer John Berry.
John, you are the new mayor here in Newmarket, as in from the last couple of weeks. What does your new role entail?
I suppose I'm the public face of the town council. As regards decision making in the town council, it's not an issue, because 18 town councillors, and when it comes to a vote, no one vote is worth more than another. Yeah, I mean, I suppose I'm the public face of the town council, so I suppose it's more symbolic, really. And there'll be a lot of events during the next 12 months that I sort of go to and represent the town council and, I suppose, represent the town, really. But it's largely symbolic.
How well is racing represented on the town council of 18?
Very well. At the moment, approximately 1/3 of the councillors, which is, you know, the disappointing thing was up till 4 years ago, there was no one who had any direct contact with racing. Some people had indirect, but no one with direct, that was actually wrong, because the town council ought to be representative of society, local society as a whole. So in an area where racing, although is, you know, the majority of people don't work in racing, but more people work in racing than in any other sphere, you should have less than half of the town councillors should be racing people, but a significant body of them should be. So I think it's good the way it is. The town council in Newmarket has always been very sympathetic to racing's cause, which is great. But a few years ago, we sort of thought we probably shouldn't be relying on other people's goodwill. We should actually, a few people should pull their fingers out and at least make a show of, you know, be seen to get involved and do something. And it's not a huge commitment, but it's nice to feel that you're doing just a little bit to help your local community. Maybe I'm flattering myself to say actually help it, but it's good to be involved. But I mean, it's just common sense that the council would do things to help the local racing business sort of thrive, because that's another thing the town council's meant to do. The town council should help all the businesses in town thrive. And, you know, we're always, for instance, you know, not just racing things, we're always looking at ways which we can help the businesses in the high street. You know, in any town in the country now, high streets are under pressure, because in the past, shopping would be done in the high street. We then moved to a situation, an awful lot of it was taken to sort of out-of-town shopping parks on the outskirts of the towns. And then the last 10 years or so, the internet's become a really, really big thing. So it's not a Newmarket problem. In every town in the country, the high street's under pressure, and I'm sure all town councils do what we do, which is constantly look of ways in which we can boost the viability of the traders in the high street.
You were a deputy to Rachel Hood. What have you learned from that role?
Well, I probably learnt that being mayor, although it is a figurehead role, can be quite time-consuming. Rachel was very good in that she gave a lot of time to, you know, going to the things that the mayor needs to go to. So yeah, I probably learned I need to pull my finger out. So I'll give it my best shot anyway. You know, there are times you can't go to things. I mean, today I'm going up to Haydock, and even if there was something that the mayor should be doing, I would feel obliged to go to Haydock with Grand Liaison. But I mean, through the year, we probably average fewer than 2 race days a week. So other than days when I've got to go to the races, I mean, days are busy, but you can normally jiggle things around a bit. You can normally fit things in. So yeah, I'll do the best I can to, you know, be as committed to the task as Rachel was.
Earlier we spoke to clerk of the course here at Sandown, Andrew Cooper, and while his tenure hasn't been as long as that of Coral's sponsorship of the Great Race, he's certainly seen some fantastic renewals in his time. I asked him about his favourite Coral Eclipse memories. Andrew, this is your 22nd Coral Eclipse. Do you remember the first one well?
I do. Ezude, Walter Swinburne, Michael Stout, 1994. Yeah, I do. I'd taken over only in that year, although I'd been involved at Sandown Park for several years before that, and the first Eclipse I'd ever been involved with was Nashwan's in '89.
Not a bad one to kick off.
No, that was very good. I mean, he was obviously coming here on the back of you know, having won the Derby and the 2,000 Guineas, which was something, you know, not repeated until See the Stars in 2009. From a personal point of view, being someone responsible for the Derby as well, I was really pleased when we finally sort of broke that quite long-standing sort of hoodoo of Derby winners not being able to come on and win the Eclipse. And obviously plenty don't try it anyway. They stay at 1.5 miles or they just take a different route. When See the Stars came along and won it, I really felt I felt it was good for the Eclipse, and I also felt it was good for the Derby.
If I had to ask you for your top Eclipse memory, if you could go back and relive one of them during your time, would it be See the Stars?
It would be. It would be. I think he very much became, you know, almost my probably favourite flat horse for what he achieved in that season and the way he was campaigned and the team behind him, who were just a pleasure to deal with. I obviously dealt closely with John Ox through 2 races. Michael Kinane we'd known well, who's come back to be an ambassador for the Coral Eclipse since then. And the owners were delightful people as well, and it was just a lovely horse.
What about even more recent winners? What about the likes of Al Kazim? Do you feel that he was one of the top winners you've seen in your time here? Do you think he gets the credit he deserves, Al Kazim?
Possibly not. Possibly not, because that season I think he came here on the back of the Prince of Wales, which is a tight enough gap. It's 2.5 weeks to come from the Prince of Wales at Ascot into the Coral Eclipse. He'd won, I think, the Tatsalls race in Ireland, the Gold Cup before that. He was in a rich vein of form at that time over that 1.25 mile distance, and running probably on ground quicker than he liked for most of those runs. Certainly here, that was a good to firm year, and he was having to, you know, to come out and do his stuff on ground quicker than ideal, and he was a very good winner too.
Take us back to the early years of your time, so the sort of mid-90s time. Is there a standout performance you had at the time? Is there a horse who you were really looking forward to coming here and running in the Coral Eclipse?
Yeah, I mean, I think a race that sticks in the mind would probably be Pilsudski's year, which I think was '97. It was a slightly sort of controversial running of the race in terms of how Bosra Sham did on the day. Benny the Dip was in the race.
Another Derby winner.
Another Derby winner to come and try. And a slightly messy race, certainly I think, as Bosra Sham was concerned, but a very, very well executed ride and race from Pilsudski, and a small but very, very select field. That was a great Eclipse. As a duel on the day, I think you'd have to go a long way to beat Giant's Causeway against Calanisi in 2000. That was Giant's Causeway stepping up in trips. And
he had that turn of foot, didn't he? Always the mark of a class horse, to 1 over a mile on the way to coming here.
Yeah.
How important do you think that was for him to get out on top in the end? That turn of foot, that bit of class.
I think it's hugely important, and I think, you know, again, it's getting that 1.25 mile Group 1 win on a horse's CV. Is one of the reasons the Coral Eclipse is the race that it is. It's why we get these really, really good horses, perhaps some of them stepping up in trip, some of them possibly being absolute 1.25 mile horses, or sometimes perhaps a Derby winner coming back in trip. Just shows the importance of it. That's how it's been, you know, almost since its inception in 1886.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of This Racing Life. Thank you to Sandown Park and indeed Coral for having us. Thank you for watching, and watch this Saturday when the latest winner of the Coral Eclipse will be making their way down this walkway and into the winner's enclosure to my left. Join us next week. We look forward to seeing you then.
Racing UK International is a must-have service for race fans across the globe. Watch live action from 34 of the UK's best racecourses and catch up on any races you've missed with a 7-day catch-up service.
It's American artists too good on the day for quick defence.
Another course of distance success for an Indian giver.
From America to India, anywhere, anytime. Sign up to Racing UK International now for just £29.99 a month.